What is going on, all of you hedgehog and racing fans out there in the world? I am Mega Am, so thank you for watching this video. Whether you are a new or returning viewer, I appreciate you stopping by. And with Sonic Racing CrossWorlds coming out sometime later this year as of this recording, I've kind of been, in my spare time, been going back and taking a look at some of the older Sonic racing games. For example, I'm playing Sonic Riders Zero Gravity for the very first time. And I decided, because it was on sale for like $5, I picked up the original Sonic and SEGA All-Stars Racing on Steam. I used to own the Xbox 360 version, the one that had Banjo-Kazooie, which is pretty fun, but unfortunately that was not backwards compatible with the Series X, and it just kind of got lost from my digital library somehow, which was a bit of a bummer. But I mean, $5 to replay this game, honestly, worth it in that regard. And I want to take the time today to kind of go through it a little bit. It's almost like a pseudo review. Probably won't quite be that, but you know, I want to compare it to Transformed, right? Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is kind of almost the gold standard when it comes to a lot of Sonic racing games. Honestly, some racing games in general, I personally prefer it to Mario Kart. But I want to compare this game to that, and like, honestly, I think this game does do some things better than the sequel. Some things is the keynote there. But I want to kind of go over pretty much what I think of this game overall and how it feels to play today, especially in a pre-CrossWorlds world. So let's jump into it here. This game came out, I don't know if this, I didn't do my research here, I'll admit. I don't know if this game came out before or after Sonic Free Riders. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you happen to know. However, this game kind of marks a new series of racing games. It was more akin to something like a Mario Kart, a lot more similar to that, whereas Sonic Riders, that whole series, was very unique for Sonic. But this is a very solid kart racer. And like I said, I honestly kind of prefer these games to some of the Mario Kart games. The main things I want to compare here are like the different modes and the characters and tracks, especially compared to Transformed, and maybe if we could see any of that in CrossWorlds. But I kind of want to focus on, you know, how this game feels to play in the year of 2025. So first of all, the single player content is a little more lacking here. It's honestly, like, when you think about it, because Transformed labels the main single player mode as a campaign mode. It's really just a glorified mission mode, which that's what this game has. But it kind of has this whole fancy world map. That's where you unlock the characters in that game, whereas you don't unlock any characters via mission mode here. You just play them all in order, and they're pretty fun. I don't know, there's some fun, solid missions to go through. Not like a ton of missions to do, but you know, they have like rival races, drifting challenges, knockout challenges, collecting rings, and they tend to repeat each other. But you know, you play as different set characters and different stages, which is kind of cool. It is a little more limited. They are kind of themed missions compared to Transform. You have a little more choice when it comes to selecting certain characters for missions, from what I remember. To be honest, it's been a bit since I played fully through Transformed. But it's a simple enough mission mode. I mean, there's I think 64 missions total here, so it's a good amount of content there if you're into that. And it's a good way to rack up Sega Miles, which are the currency for this game, which you can use to buy stuff in the shop. You start off buying different characters. Just a heads up, I bought all the characters so far. Once you buy all the characters, you can then choose between buying courses to play in like single race mode, and you can also choose for music tracks to select in the races, which is really, really cool. I really like that feature, and I don't think it's in Transform. Definitely correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I took a quick look right before recording this video, and it didn't seem like there was a way to choose different music tracks in Transformed, although I could be wrong about that. Split screen, I never played this game split screen multiplayer, so not really many things to mention there. I think there might be fewer cups in this game. I'm not going to take a look at the Grand Prix, because I'm just going to do like single races to keep this video a lot shorter. But there's not too many cups. The big comparison here, of course, comes down to like how it feels to play. I mean, first of all, there's no transforming mechanics with like flying in the sky, traveling in the water, and of course ground. Like, that's not in this game, right? That is a Transform specific feature until they added in CrossWorlds, which is really cool. But here, that is not the case. Everybody has different carts here, but I will say, as a result, I feel like characters have more like unique carts here. This game has bikes. Some of these characters have bikes. Like, for example, Shadow has a bike. He does not have a bike in Transformed. A lot of characters have ATVs in Transformed, but there's no like bikes, probably because they didn't want to convert it into like a flying vehicle or a boat vehicle, maybe. I don't know, that's my best guess. Big also has a bike, which is really funny. Alex Kidd has a bike. Rio from Shenmue has a bike. I think that's everybody. I think that's all the bikes. And like, for example, like Oola La, she has a really cool vehicle there. I feel like the vehicles are more unique in this game, which is one edge I'll give it. The rocket ship for the choo-choos. The other thing I want to talk about, well, big thing I want to talk about are the characters here. Because some of these characters are not in Transformed. And honestly, in some ways, I prefer this roster to Transformed. I love that they included new franchises like having Gillies Thunderhead from Golden Axe, Vice from Skies of Arcadia, actually making Knights a playable character and not just a flag bearer like in this game. That's awesome, but one thing that Transformed does that I'm not as big of a fan of is adding secondary characters from already present represented franchises. So for example, you have Gum and Beat from Jet Set Radio, you have Pudding and Ulala from Space Channel 5, you have Riala and Knights from Knights, Mimi and Ai from Super Monkey Ball. I definitely prefer the breadth over the depth when it comes to these because Sega has so many historic IP that they could add more characters for. And this game in particular has some interesting ones. I mean, of course, Sonic has a million characters because it's Sonic. I don't think there's any other series that has more than one character in this game. Billy Hatcher, unique character for this game. I guess it made sense because, well, when did Billy Hatcher the Giant Egg come out? That was a GameCube exclusive, right? Let me know in the comments below. I'm pretty sure it was at least. Not in Transformed, although they do have the Billy Hatcher level in Transformed. All these characters are there. Zobio and Zobiko. Now, the game says these two are from a series called Curian Mansion. I'm 90% sure that is the Japanese name for House of the Dead. Definitely correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but I believe from what I remember researching a long time ago is that these two are from a Japanese exclusive House of the Dead game. Because, I mean, the logo is exactly House of the Dead. It just says Curian Mansion instead. So that's cool to have them represented. There's no character from House of the Dead in Racing Transformed. Jackie and Akira, this is interesting because they're from Virtua Fighter. They're not at all... There's no Virtua Fighter representation in Racing Transformed either, which is kind of interesting. I guess Virtua Fighter kind of fell off, and as of now, in 2025, we heard about a new Virtua Fighter coming out, and that's coming back. So that's really cool to hear. So who knows, maybe we'll see, I don't know, them and maybe a crossover Sega game in the future if Sega decides to do that. We have the Choo Choos from Choo Choo Rocket. They're exclusive to this game. The Bonanza Brothers. This is a random pig. This is from that random Genesis game. I don't know, maybe it's a cult hit. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever played Bonanza Brothers. It's in a bunch of collections, but never really played it myself. But they're here. They're funny. Alex Kidd is in Transform, which is kind of cool. And Opa Opa genuinely might be my favorite racer in this game. Makes sense why Opa Opa from Fantasy Zone is not in Transform, because how would you transform Opa Opa into a flying, I mean, kind of already flies, or a boat, right? Because literally it's like the character is the vehicle. It's one of those cases. But I love the character, super unique. Big is not in Transform. Big is only in this game, which is interesting. And he has a little froggy themed bike. It's just like, I love the vehicles in this game. They feel so much more unique. And what is a bit of a downgrade, I feel like, I mean, I can't say downgrade, it's more of an upgrade in Transform, right? Because that's the sequel. Here, every character has specific stats, which I think Mario Kart used to do. Definitely correct me if I'm wrong about that. Whereas you only have the one vehicle per character in this game, and they each have their own set stats. So if you prefer handling over speed, you can't play characters like Sonic, for example, who has like, well, I guess that's full turbo boost. But some characters just have full-on speed, right? I think Eggman's actually one of those. Yeah, you know, and it's like, with Transform, they fixed that where you can choose any character and then you have different builds per vehicle, and that affects the stats. So that was definitely a nice change there. I'm going to do a race here. I'm going to play as Opa Opa. So, like, I do like how there are some more options for different series represented in this game that, honestly, some of them not being included in Transform are kind of baffling. The main one being Virtua Fighter for me. That's just, like, a very historic Sega franchise. And I don't love how, instead of trying to get different other IP represented, they kind of double down on already existing IP with some of the characters in Transformed, but at least, like, I don't know, there's still some more interesting series represented. Stage selection, I gotta say, is much better in Transformed. Here, they're limited to, like, Sonic, Billy Hatcher, Samba de Amigo, Jet Set Radio, House of Dead, Super Monkey Ball, and I think that's literally all of them. And there's, like, at least 3 variants of each stage. Sonic in particular has, like, 3 variants of Seaside Hill, 3 variants of Casino Park, and, like, 3 variants of Final Fortress or Death Egg, whatever you want to consider it. So it definitely, I feel like levels blend together here, whereas they are much more unique and standalone in Racing Transform. Like, for example, you have the Starlight Carnival level, I think it's Starlight Carnival, from Sonic Colors. You have Sky Sanctuary from Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And you have more series like the Skies of Arcadia level's great, the Golden Axe level's great. I will say, like, some of my favorite stages are in this game. So, for example, like, as much as I love Shibuya Downtown, which is in Racing Transformed, I really do like both Highway Zero and Rukaku Hill from Jet Set Radio Future, and they are not in Transformed, which is kind of a bummer. Um, and like Monkey Target's kind of a fun level in this game. It's tough, but it's fun. The Monkey Ball levels in this game are brutal. But there are, I wish they picked some of the less generic levels from this game to bring into Racing Transformed, but they do go for more breadth than depth when it comes to the stages in that game, which I do appreciate. So across the board, I think the stages are much better in Transformed. But honestly, so like I mentioned previously, there is this music select, and from what I found, like there was no way to do that in Transformed. Definitely correct me in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but I didn't see a way to do it. So we'll see here. Let's do a quick race here on Ocean View, it calls in this game, pretty much just sees that hill. Also, shout out to this game, because this didn't come out too long after Sonic Rush, and this was when, there's a lot of Sonic Rush tracks in this game, and this was when, like, Hideki Nakanuma and Sega were still, like, doing stuff together, it seemed, which, I don't know if there's any, in, like, newer racing games and stuff, there really isn't any Hideki Nakanuma work, which is unfortunate, but in this game they have plenty, which is great to see. But, like, I don't know. But, like, for a first outing for a kart racer, this was a really solid game. Like, the mechanics here are really good. I mean, of course, Transformed added the new terrain, and that really makes levels feel more refreshing. And with the upcoming CrossWorlds, it seems like that's going to make gameplay even more refreshing, because not only do you have the transforming terrain, which I'm curious how that's going to work with vehicles like the Extreme Gear, but then you also have the, of course, the warp rings that'll take you to other different areas for a specific lap. So races, I think, are going to feel even more varied in CrossWorlds if you compare to Transformed. But will there be Sega crossover content? I mean, Sega did confirm in a press release that they said Sonic and Sega characters. I imagine, and they confirmed DLC, I imagine DLC is going to be reserved for probably mostly Sega characters. Kind of like what Smash Brothers did with the DLC fighter passes. A lot of those, majority of those were third party. I imagine they're going to do that in a similar way with CrossWorlds, where it's like a lot of the Sega crossover characters will be relegated to DLC. But we could still see a couple in the base game. Like, mainly I would love to see II. I think II probably would make the most sense. Add a Like a Dragon character. Add Sega characters that weren't in these two games, you know what I mean? Add a, I don't know, Joker from Persona 5. I think that's totally on the table. Or a character from Metaphor if you want to be more recent. Items are relatively similar between these two racing games, I'll say. And they're solid. I don't know. They're, like, decent, I like to think. But, yeah, it's like, I mean, overall, like, this game still feels really good to play. Like, I do not think Transformed makes this game feel outdated. I think especially because of the unique characters in this one. And honestly, like, sometimes you prefer a simpler racing game, and this game is definitely simpler than Transformed. Like, Transformed, yeah, the mechanic is cool, but, like, if you want just, like, a solid classic kart racer game, like, I think this is a good one to go to. It still plays really well to this day. I do think Transformed is the superior game. I do think it is superior to this game. But I mean, that makes sense, right? You want a sequel to be superior. You want the sequel to iterate on the original. And I think they do that for the most part pretty well. Which is great to see. Did I accidentally replay? I think I might have. I'll have to exit out of this. But it's like, I don't know. It's still a solid kart racing game. Like, oh no, I didn't. Okay, we're just shopping. Oh, I don't have enough for the next level. I gotta save up for those. We'll see if I even end up unlocking everything. How much time did I put in this game? It says a little over 6 hours. Yeah, it's short. Right, there's some single-player content with a mission mode, which is great. Kind of akin to something like Mario Kart DS does. Honestly, the recent Mario Karts haven't been doing that, which is kind of a bummer. But just having a mission mode, like even just that is really cool. And like Transform kind of has that, but they label it as the campaign. And that's the way you unlock characters, which honestly is kind of cooler. It's more of an incentive to play through that mode. But like, I don't think this game should be disregarded. You know, it has its own unique characters. It's a much more like simple, like streamlined version of the Sonic and Sega Racing game compared to the transforming mechanics, which, yeah, adds a lot of new gameplay, but also, you know, it can be a little overwhelming. Like, for example, like sometimes the controls, especially in the flight mode in Transformed, aren't the best. But, you know, it's there as an option if you want, which is why I'm super excited for CrossWorlds, because there seems to be a lot of options when it comes to the gameplay, and it's going to make things seem so refreshed. It's really taking a bunch of elements from the Rider series, from this game and its sequel Transformed, and some new elements with the crossing over mechanic into different worlds and like making a whole new thing. So honestly, like, it wasn't intentional that I bought this game on Steam, just to wrap this video up at this time with CrossWorlds coming out, but it's kind of made me like appreciate some of the you know, older racing games more so, and like kind of like setting expectations for what the gameplay maybe could be similar to in Sonic Racing CrossWorlds. But overall, I mean, still worth your time, especially if it's like $5 on sale. Like if you're curious about some of the previous Sonic Racing games, like this is a really short one to go through. And it's, you know, it has some fun content, unique characters. The level selection is definitely worse for sure. But some of the characters I wish that were in this game, I wish they'd come back to Transform. Unfortunately, they're stuck to this game, but just something to keep in mind. But anyways, everybody, with that, just wanted to make a quick little video, not really a review, but just kind of talking about how the original Sonic SEGA All-Stars Racing, it's still a fun game. It's still worth your time, I think. But let me know your thoughts on this game in the comments below, as well as a sequel Transformed. Like, which one do you prefer? What do you like about both these games? Do you have memories of these games? Have you never played these games? Are you excited for Sonic Racing CrossWorlds? So many questions. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, I will catch you all on the next video or live stream. And until then, keep that pedal to the metal. Is that what it is? Keep the foot on the gas. See you later.